Today is Mother's Day. Hopefully that was not a shock when you walked in the building and it was first announced. A day that is set aside to recognize our mothers and women in our lives that have made an influence in our lives. This day was officially created 100 years ago, after a long campaign by Anna Jarvis, who wanted to celebrate her mother who had passed away in 1905. However, once it became an official holiday, the true meaning of the day got lost in the rush to commercialize it and make a profit. By 1924, Anna Jarvis was worried that greed was starting to overshadow the real meaning of the holiday. Commercialization of Mother's Day is growing every year since the movement has spread to all parts of the world. Many things have tried to attach themselves because of its success. I think we can safely say that Mother's Day has been completely commercialized. How many flower stores or chocolate stores or card stores are advertising special things for mothers? It has even got to the point of clothing, any store, jewelry store. Did you buy your mother a piece of jewelry today? It has become commercialized. But what does this day mean to you? I have always believed this was a day to celebrate all women, whether they are mothers or not. Along our journey in life, there will be many women that will influence us along the way. Recently, our Women's Bible Study completed a study on the book by Stacey Eldridge entitled Becoming Myself. It was an interesting study that had us looking at our past with our relationship with our mothers, looking at who we are today, and then looking into the future to the women we are becoming. When we look at our past, we can see women who have lived before us that have influenced our lives and Christian walk. In the Bible, there are several women who are role models for us. We could spend hours looking at the strong women that are recorded in Scripture. Two of my favorite women in Scriptures are Mary and Martha. I love the contrast between the two sisters. Martha was the doer. She was busy doing what had to be done, while Mary was the quiet one, spending much needed time in the presence of the Lord. When Martha complained to Jesus about her sister not helping, his response to her in Luke's gospel was that she was worrying too much about the details. Mary had discovered what truly was important. There is time for the details, but there's always has to be time spent with the Lord. It is the balance between the two women is what many of us strive for, to balance faith and works. In the book of James, it tells us, without works, faith is dead. Chapter 2, verse 17. So you see, it isn't enough just to have faith. Faith that doesn't show itself by good deeds is no faith at all. It is dead and useless. We need to have strong faith, but this also has to play out in our daily actions. Perhaps you can think of someone who has all this figured out. There have been a few examples in my life of people that seem to have a strong faith and showed it in all they do. Who comes to mind for you today? Perhaps it is your mother, your grandmother, an aunt, a family friend. I have often mentioned the impact my grandmother had on my life, and especially my Christian walk. Over the last few weeks, while thinking about this message, it has been hard, as this is the first Mother's Day without her. She is the one example that I have of someone who was able to balance the task of the day with her time with God. Those memories and lessons that she taught me will stay with me forever. There are many women today that provide us with strong Christian role models. I pray that each of you can think of at least one person that is active in your life that fills that role. The importance of the past allows us to draw strength and encouragement, especially in the difficult times. But what about today? As we spend some time in the present, who are our role models? The women we look up to, the ones we go to for support and comfort. and guidance. In the scriptures that were read earlier, in verses 1 and 2, it states, "Imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God." We can turn to scriptures to find that example of Christ that we are to be like. But so often we are looking around us to see women or men that fill that role. Are you surrounded by Christian examples that make it easy to see what living a life full of love is like? Or are you struggling to find that example? When we were in training college, we were told to find a couple different mentors. I connected very easily with a peer mentor, but never truly connected with the spiritual mentor that was chosen. As I look back now, it was because of a lack of effort on my part to build that relationship. I think it's extremely important that we all have a spiritual mentor, not only to set the example, but to be there for us when we have questions, to hold us accountable for our actions, and to help us grow into the people that God dreams us to be. It is so easy to get caught up in what is happening around you that you can get sidetracked. Sometimes things change slightly, and you don't even notice. The words in Ephesians are clear on what we are not to do. It tells us boldly not to let sin find a place amongst God's people. Let there be no sexual immorality, impurity, or greed among you. Obscene stories, foolish talk, and coarse jokes, these are not for you. Instead, let there be thankfulness to God. Life is not easy. There is going to be difficulties, but we, as children of God, need to be thankful. To thank God for our daily lives, for the challenges, for the blessings, and especially to spend time each day thanking him for the people he has placed in our path. Mother's Day is a great day to highlight the impact of women have had on our lives, but truly this needs to be done daily. Perhaps your relationship with your mother is not great, and you don't always feel thankful for her. There was a time when I did not have a great relationship with my mom. However, as I grew in my spiritual walk and matured a lot, I realized the important part she played and continues to play in my life. Whether our mom is a great spiritual woman or a woman who is struggling to find her way, give thanks to God for her. When we think of our future, is it with excitement or anticipation, or are we dreading tomorrow? Our own attitude about life will show in all we do, say, and who we are. We are now the women and men that are examples for the younger generations to follow. What are they seeing? As a generation, are we leaving a strong legacy for the next one to follow? As generations pass, I am often challenged on whether the legacies being left are growing stronger with the gospel truths or weaker by the world's influence on each passing generation. There are many young people in our church, our families, our community that require true, authentic Christian examples to follow. I ask you today, are you one of them? If not, what can you do to strengthen your Christian walk? We are encouraged in verses 6 to 9 in the Ephesians text. Don't be fooled by those who try to excuse these sins, for the anger of God will fall on all who disobey him. Don't participate in the things these people do, for once you were full of darkness, but now you have light from the Lord. So live as people of light, for this light within you produces only what is good and right and true. As Christians, we carry the light of Christ with us. I am reminded of the children's song, "This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine." I'm not going to sing it, don't worry. Are we allowing our light to shine brightly, or are we hiding it behind closed doors? These verses tell us not to participate in the sins of the world, but it is not telling us to stay away from unbelievers. It is clearly telling us to shine our light into the world's darkness, the world's sin. Believers who shine out in a dark world will expose evil. Their mission is to invite unbelievers to renounce the life of sin and to come into Christ's light so that they too can become the light in the Lord. So today we give thanks and honor to the women who have allowed their light to shine in our lives and before we were born. But it is also a day to think about our own lives. Are we shining for Christ? Do we need to rid our lives of the sin that we are living in and let Christ's light shine through every part of our lives? In verse 14, it gives us clear instructions on what to do if we find ourselves not shining for Christ. Awake, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will give you light. It is time to awake, to rise from our darkness, and be true lights for Christ.